we have this documentation which explains step by step what you need to do to fix the problem. And then not only is it just the introductory description on how you can go and perform the fix, but there's going to be language specific fixes as well. Yeah, so I apologize, we don't have the setting correctly configured, but yeah, normally what you will see here is you can change languages, you can change to .NET, Java, or any of the supported languages, and then you get to see language specific code snippets on how you would typically fix the issue, right? Okay, so that's what AppScan Standard can do from a typical scanning sequence. Now let's take a look at Postman collection import. Okay. All right. So okay, so let's go to File and then click on Close. Okay, and then what we'll do here is while we're in the starting page, click on the Import Postman Collection shortcut on the top right. Okay, again, you have to go to File and Close in order to arrive at the landing page here. But once you're here, if you see the Import Postman Collection, click on that. And that's where we can actually import the Postman Collection file. Now, if you want to learn more and just read this offline, click on the Learn More, and that should open up our documentation page that describes every field in detail. We're not going to use that, but here, let's try to import a Postman collection file. So click on the Choose button on the right of the first field, okay? Now, let's all go to C and go to program file x86, okay, and then go to HCL. I'll go through this again, so don't worry if you're not able to follow. So under HCL, go to AppScan Standard, and then go to Template, go to Postman. Okay, so again, it's under C, program file x86, under HCL, under AppScan Standard, okay, under Template, and then Postman. Let me just copy this path to the chat in case you need to reference it. And you should see this Postman collection JSON file. So let's open this. And before I go into any of these other settings, this is actually the only thing you need to do an API scan. Right? Again, this is actually contingent upon how good of a Postman collection the developer has built. The assumption is that because it's a Postman collection, then it's got all the necessary fields and settings within it that allows you to browse through your application or your API endpoints. But if it's well built, then this is all you need to do, right? Import it. The other field you do need to put in is to specify the API domains to be tested. So in this case, let's all type in demo.testfire.net. Okay, I'm gonna paste it in the chat again. So if it traverses through other domains, you can actually include that those other fields as well. But yeah, let me just delete that, and we'll just keep the demo.testfire.net. These optional files are only needed if your collection is dependent upon them. So things like link files. So if your collection links to other files as part of your API testing, like if there's other collections that needs to be imported, you can zip them up and then upload it here. And again, if you click on the Learn More, it's going to explain more in detail how to do that. But this needs to be a zip, and it goes into here. And in our case, we don't have any link files, so we don't need to specify that. For your environment variables or your global variables, and again, if your collection uses these environment variables, then you can specify those variable files in here as well. Okay. So again, I don't have that. My collection is actually good. So in that case, I can then just scroll down. My API domain is specified. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to import and explore only. okay? So let's go select that, import explore only, and then click on import. So we can save this. So let's click on save and just call it Postman collection. I'm gonna call it template, so I know it's a scan template here. Okay, you can give it any name you want, just something that you can recognize later on. Okay. And what it's gonna do, because we have selected the explore only, it's going to explore our endpoint, our application endpoints as specified in the Postman collection. Okay, so if we, while it's doing that, oh, okay, it finished. If you click on the scan log, you'll get to see kind of exactly what it's doing at every steps there. But you can see, with that collection import, we're able to see, request. There's 9 requests, 13 parameters identified, some headers, and you get to see that in the dashboard. But let's go back to the data view again. And okay, so data view on the left here, okay. And then under the request tab, let me just minimize the scan log. Here's where I can see, all the different Postman collection endpoints that has been explored, right? And so just to clarify, these are actual explored endpoints. They're not just a direct import into AppScan, and we just assume that, we can test this later on. These are actually exact endpoints that are specified in the Postman collection. So things like, add user, right? Like all the parameters is specified here. And you can see the request and response that we have performed in order to access this particular API endpoint. Okay, and and the other thing we should probably pay attention to is the headers. Okay, so what headers has been collected? Okay, and then parameters as well, right? What parameters are identified that will be tested. So here, for this point on, you can actually do a test only, and it's going to test all these API endpoints. But let's not do that just yet. We're gonna take a look at this, using a different methodology, which I'll talk about here. Okay, so just make sure you have saved it. So I'm gonna just save scan again, and then that's gonna save the explore data. Okay, again, just go to File, Save Scan. Okay, so my explore data should be now saved, and it's stored in that scan file. Okay, so I guess, okay, Postman collection. So one thing perhaps we can actually take a quick look at as well. For those who are not familiar with Postman collection, let me show you that quickly here. So, and you're free to follow along, but this is just more for demonstration purposes. Okay, if you go to desktop, there should be Postman installed. Okay, and then if I open up Postman, I'm gonna try to import that collection, and you get to see what that looks like from the actual Postman tool. A collection is simply a set of kind of descriptions of your API endpoints, and it describes how you will access those API endpoints, right? It describes what parameters needs to be specified. It's going to contain also, usually, right? It's going to contain examples on what to put into your API endpoints as well. Okay, so if you have Postman open, like I do here, let me just exit this. You can try this one thing. So if you click on this import here under collections, right? Click on import, and then we're gonna drag and drop that same file that we imported into AppScan. So, okay, under program file x86, HCL AppScan Standard, template, Postman, right? That JSON file, let's just drag and drop it into Postman here, and then click on import. And you should see this new collection that has been imported, 24_5, blah, blah, blah. And this is the collection that I was referring to. So, if you expand the login folder here, And we can do this together as well, right? So it's just, for sake of argument, let's just try to perform the login method. So click on the login method, the post request, and click on send. And you get to see the response at the bottom. So basically what has happened is that we have sent a request to my target URL. Okay, so in this case, it looks like it's pointing to my internal application, but you can see at the bottom here, it's a 200 OK, and then there's a success message with a authorization token. Okay, so that's basically all it is a collection of your API request. So like, for example, if I do a get account, I can list, generate a list of accounts as well. Okay, so this is how this is how I typically examine what a collection contains, just to import it into Postman and see what's there. But as you can see with an AppScan, we can also import it as well, and then explore the site as if you're using Postman. Once we have these endpoints identified, we know what parameters which parameters we need to test. Then when you run a test, then it's going to be able to identify the vulnerabilities if there are any, right? Okay, so let's go to the AppScan on cloud. We're going to try to do we're going to do something a little bit different here, where eventually I want to be able to import this collection to this scan configuration to the cloud and have it scan there. So I'll show you how that looks like, but yeah, let's go to the browser. Okay, so for those who have logged into AppScan on cloud, let's just log back in if you got logged out again. Okay, again, that's under here. I'll just paste the URL back into the chat, just in case you lost it. It's cloud.appscan.com/EU is the URL. Okay, so once we have logged into AppScan Cloud, okay, and the first thing that we should do now is to create an application. So click on create a new application here. And let's now all create an application of our own. Let's call it Arturo, and then I'll append my name in the back so I know who there's, like which one is mine. You're free to just add your initials or something that you can recognize yourself later, but I'm just gonna, I'm gonna name it like this. And you'll get to see my applications when it's created because we're all under the same asset group, okay? Business impact, I'm gonna set it to high, just so that I can see how it affects the risk rating. Business unit, I'm gonna choose engineering, okay? And then for the asset group, it's gonna look a little bit different on your side, but you should see you're under the AppScan Innovation DAST October 13 asset group. Okay, so that's what I'm going to put in. You're free to make some changes here as you wish. Change the business impact or business unit to something. Yeah, that's what I have put in here. And then security rating, again, this is where, as I mentioned before, you can specify different requirements for your application. Since this is optional, I'm just going to skip it for the purpose of the workshop. Personnel associated to the application, again, that's something you can specify. Just helps with categorizing and filtering your applications later on, right? But again, it's optional fields. And then additional detail, again, these are all optional components that you can include if you decide to add them in. So let's click on create. And that should take me into this applications view. Okay, so here there's different things you can do. We usually, I like to start with the create scan, but in this case, we're going to try to import an existing scan configuration. So what I'm going to do here is if you click on create scan, okay, and then click on DAST, right? For us, we're going to be doing dynamic analysis. And instead of creating a new scan, and you can play around with this as well, later on. just to create a new scan and see what the settings are here. But I'm not going to go through a create new scan here, but rather I'm going to upload a scan file. Okay, and here you can see it's that we can actually upload scan a .scan file format. What I'm going to do is I will then navigate to my file explorer. So if you open your file explorer under the quick access, but the default save location is here, right? So depending on where you save your stuff, for me it's all under the document AppScan folder, and my Postman collection template, right? That's now here. So you can drag and drop it. Okay, and then here at the bottom, we're going to do a run test stage only. Okay, it's because as you can see, the file contains configuration and explore stage data, and we're just going to do a test on this particular store data. With AppScan on Cloud, you can specify whether you want to run it as a personal scan. In that case, it's not going to affect your application risk ratings and other attributes. Okay, so I'm not going to do that. You can also allow intervention. Basically, what this means is that if there are some issues with the scan, so things like timeouts or anything like that, we have a team of scan enablers who can actually help with troubleshooting and help move your scan along, right? A lot of people see this as a tremendous value add because traditionally, if you're running scans locally on-prem, you're responsible for making sure the timeout settings and everything is it's adequate. It's not going to crash your site. Obviously, if the scan crashes your site, then it's going to fail nonetheless. But it just gives you another layer of leveraging the scan enablement team to help troubleshoot certain things to make sure the scan is successful. You can include some messages here as well, like here it says like ticket numbers, or if there's some unusual login requirements, you can let them know, and then that will trigger kind of an intervention for them to then take certain actions regarding the scan. So I'm not going to include these boxes, and I'm just going to run a scan, as a default way. Okay, and as you can see, I have a scan that is running, and it's going to essentially follow my scan configuration. Okay. If I go back to my application view, I can now see that I have one scan that is running. Okay, and then if I then just click on the DAST scan here again, it's going to show the scan that is executing. So you can come back here and see how it progresses. Since we're all hitting the same site, I have a feeling that we might crash it. It has happened before. So if it does, if you see your scan fail, don't be alarmed. Likely the site might have crashed, the public site, right? So let's go back to the application view again. And then what I want to show is I want to show you what it would look like if you have a completed scan. So let's leave our scan running there, right? Let's let it do its thing. And in the application view, you can click on the Arturo-AC application. And if you click on this application, this is something I've already ran before. So it's got a completed scan here already. So if you see the scan here, if you click on the DAST scan, you can see that there's a completed scan with some results. Okay, so what I want to show here is if you go to the all issues view, okay, so again, okay, let me just step back here and make sure we're following this. So under the application view, if you click on the all issues on the top left, okay, and here again, it will show you a list of all the issues that have been identified in my application. And so the difference I want to draw here is that this is a list of issues from all my scans, not just the one scans, but rather, if there's multiple scans conducted across the multiple weeks or a month, they're all going to get collected into this application all issues view. And that includes actually SAST scan results. So if you're using AppScan on Cloud for static analysis or open source analysis, all the results can actually be surfaced up and bubble up into this all issues view. Okay, so really gives you the ability to manage your issues on an application basis and not just by a per scan, right? Because your application evolves over time. You know, new issues could be introduced, old issues resolved. You know, you want to get the latest picture of what's going on within the application. So you'll notice that if you click on any of the issues, you'll get to see a very similar view on the right, where it shows you like some details about the scan result. Like, so for example, this one, SQL injection, you know, it's same thing, right? It's test request response. So we've seen this before, right? In AppScan Standard. So again, you know, it gives you another platform to examine your scan results. If you click on the how to fix, yeah, so this is what it's supposed to show in the AppScan Standard site, if we have the license issue fixed. But this is basically what you can expect to see, just the description on, you know, first of all, right, on just what SQL injection is in this case. We don't make any assumptions in the sense that, you know, everybody should know what a SQL injection is, but rather we start from the beginning. You know, we explain why this is a issue, you know, like the cause of it, the risk element associated to such an attack, and fix recommendations, as you can see, on how to generally fix something like a SQL injection. You know, there's going to be these CWE numbers, external references available here. And if you look at the top, right, this is where I was talking about, you know, in terms of language-specific fixes, right? So in this case, for SQL injection, we have all these languages supported. And this will give you, you know, like, so for example, if I click on .NET, I look at the fix recommendation. Actually, I might need to go into one of these API references. And fix recommendation. So it's going to tell me exactly if I were to use that particular API, how am I supposed to kind of address a potential SQL injection issue? So code snippets, and then also what APIs I might want to leverage to prevent SQL injection in this case. Okay, so it's all kind of here, right? So really, it gives you the chance to guide your developers or allow them to guide themselves step by step on how to address the problem, and not just kind of throw the problem at them and then like, hey, go figure out what to do next, right? So, okay, and then you also have things like comments. So if you want to interact with other team members about this issue, you can type in the comment here. Audit trail, okay, so the number of times that perhaps the scan has been conducted multiple times, you can see those updates here. Also, this audit trail will also reflect the status change of these issues, right? So yeah, so so for example, right now, you can see like on the left here, my issues are all new. And new, it just means that, you know, nobody has examined these issues yet. They just came in from a scan. But rather, if you click on the checkbox, okay, so for example, I click on the checkbox for this one, and you click on the edit status, you can change it to something else other than new. Okay, so open just kind of means that I've examined it, and I might want my developers to focus on just the open ones. Maybe the new ones may not have been reviewed yet. You know, open would be the ones that I want them to look at. You can set it to in progress. Okay, or noise, fixed, or passed. So noise and passed essentially marks this issue as basically a non-issue. So if you deemed this issue as something that's just, you know, we're not vulnerable to this, or if you marked it as, if you deem this as a false positive, you can set it to noise. And what's going to happen is that AppScan in the subsequent scan under this application, if it sees the same issue again, it's not gonna alert you anymore, right? It's not gonna be shown as a new issue. So it really helps with kind of you know, narrowing down on the set of findings on what are the actual issues that you want to be able to address. The fixed status is also interesting. If you mark a issue as fixed, what AppScan is going to do is during a subsequent rescan of the application, if it sees that the issue it was fixed, but then it still sees the issue again, it's going to reopen the issue, basically marking or indicating to you that the issue was reopened since it was detected again. Okay, so that you can see like there's a whole vulnerability management workflow built into the tool, and these are really just dependent on how extensive you want to leverage some of these settings, right? You can if you have a group of people working on the application, then you may want to leverage some of these more additional, more like granular statuses. If not, you can just simply leverage some of the, the ones that has an impact on the issue, like the noise, the fixed, or the past, right? So all depends on how your workflow is and how you want to adapt this to it. Okay. Okay, so let's see here. So we've gone through the applications view. We've initiated some scans. Let me take a look and see how the scans are running. Okay, so it looks like there's a number of scans being initiated. It's all in a running state. Okay. So one other thing I want to quickly point out, we mentioned this during the initial slides where there's the topic of policies, right? So let's all go back to our individual application. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to go back to my Anthony Chu one. If you look at the policy section here, it says that I am compliant. Okay, and I get a little green check mark. And who doesn't like a green check mark? Right? It's it means that we're in a good state. We don't have any. We're not in violation of any policies in this case. The reason is because there's no policy associated to it. Okay, so if we click on the manage policy, okay, and then this will tell us what are the different policies associated to my application, my Ultra Anthony Chu application. So right now there's no policies tied to it. So what we can actually do, okay, so let's expand the navigation panel on the left here. Okay, let's go to tools. Actually, if you go to under organization, okay, and you click on policies here. So this is the list of all the different kind of pre-built policies that you can tie to your application. Okay, so you can see there's GDPR, ISO 27001. Popular one is OWASP top 10. People like to check against whether our application is compliant with that. And you get to see other ones as well, right? So let's click on OWASP top 10 2021. Let's assume that this is the policy that we want our application to be compliant with and be alerted if it's not in compliant with. So in that case, we click on this one. Click on associate with application on the right. Okay, so this, you should see this little pop-up panel on the right. And when you click on the associate application, you should see first of all, your asset group. Again, I think we should all be under this one, the innovation workshop one. And then when you click on the select application, so click on the checkbox next to your application. Okay, so for me, it's going to be the one with my name. And then click on save. Okay, so I can see my application has been now associated to this policy. Now, if I go back to my application again, my list of application, and I go to my Anthony Chu one, okay, so you can now see I have a OWASP top 10 policy that is associated to it, and I am currently not compliant. And the non-compliance is really because of the criteria where OWASP top 10 validates against, right? So if I go to my all issues view, basically what this is saying is that these issues that have been identified violate OWASP top 10 as a policy. Okay, and in fact, you can actually see if you click on the filter, if I go to enable policy, okay, so again, I'm under the all issues view, under filter, you can actually see which ones violate, the policies associated to it. So if I click on apply, You know, I think it's pretty much everything. 40, there was 41 or 40 something, but now it's 40 issues. All these ones are in violation of OWASP top 10. Okay. And again, you know, as you fix the issues, right? So let's say I am able to fix, you know, these issues, and I mark them as fixed, okay, for the statuses. Okay. It's going to affect my policy. So right now, you know, I mean, I fixed 5, but you know, it's still in violation of the compliance policy. And you know, this really stems from kind of a rescan type of workflow, right? So you run the scan once, you mark it as fixed, but you want to check if it's really fixed by running a rescan. And that's really where the verification step comes in. You know, just because you mark it as fixed doesn't mean it's really fixed, right? So during a rescan, if it was rediscovered that the issue exists, it's going to reopen. If it's not found again, then it's just going to stay as fixed. And gradually, you know, I get to see if my issues become addressed over time, and then I am then, you know, in compliant, you know, eventually, right? So a quick thing just around the platform itself as well. You do have the ability to assign users. So in this case, if you were to go to, well, first of all, you can create roles as well, or use existing roles. So you have things like administrator, manager, application manager. You might not be able to see this because of your permissions for the workshop, but just to show you kind of you know, what's available here, you do have these kind of roles that are usable for you. Like you can edit and see which people can do what actions. Like maybe a report viewer here cannot run scans, but they can generate report, right? But a tester can run scans, but then they cannot modify asset groups, or they cannot modify applications. And then you can always add new roles that would, you know, have the specific permissions that you would want to give to that group of users. And once you have a role tied to it, then that's where you can then invite user. Okay, so this is where you can then send the invitation email to the user, assign them with a role, and then assign them to the particular asset group. Okay, so that's the whole set of user management and asset group management capability built into AppScan on Cloud. Okay. All right. So I think at this point here, let me just check, do a quick time check. So we are, the workshop is booked for 3 hours, so I think we still have about 45 minutes. I'm going to, yeah, there's not much left. I'm going to wrap it up in another 15 minutes here. One of the things I wanted to demonstrate as well as part of the workshop is integration into CI/CD pipeline, right? So let me just take a quick look at the questions. I can see Peter and Nino, you guys are answering questions. Anything that we should bring up, Peter or Nino? Or are we all good?
Hey, thanks a lot, Anthony. Yeah, I'm trying to keep up here. There's a lot of different things.
Yeah, I can see a lot
real quick on what's not answered here. It seems like there's a lot of questions about one-time passwords, and like, so obviously currently right now ASOC does support the time-based one-time password, but not the URL-based, and it's a little bit different than how standard does it, where with ASOC right now, you would still have to actually provide those parameters, even though you could do a recorded login just like standard, but that's a little bit different there. And then ASOC support both MFA. Yeah, so when people talk about MFA and one-time passwords, and I don't know if you want to talk about it, I'll just kind of mention a couple things here though. So you have, it really just depends, right? Because one-time passwords, right? If it's something, if it's a time-based one, you still have to know the specific parameters as Anthony went through to show you those fields that you have to populate. So if you don't have that information, you're not going to be able to utilize that functionality, or if it's, again, if it's URL based. But the whole idea, right, with one-time passwords, if possible, you want to disable that, right? And I think Anthony mentioned, right, you're not there to test, that functionality of your multi-factor authentication system, right? That's just a component that your application's using. You want to focus on that application. Now, if maybe you have to scan in production, you truly can't disable it, right? Well, there's other ways, and then of course, AppScan Standard does have that prompt option when there's no other options and things like that. I think that's hopefully most of those questions. I don't know, Peter, if you see anything else that I not covered, and I still got a couple more I'm trying to respond back to here that are kind of unique one-off questions, but I'll turn it back to you, Anthony.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Nino. Yeah, keep the questions coming. I think, yeah, if we can help you out and just address some of the questions you have, we'll be glad to kind of answer them here. If not, if we don't have the answer for you, we may, leave us a note and then we'll get back to you later on. But yeah, keep the questions coming, guys. All right, so I think the last part, last component that I wanted to just go through as well as part of the workshop is to talk about a little bit on the CI/CD integration, right? So what are the different ways we can integrate with third-party toolings, things like Azure DevOps, Jenkins. So if you click on the plugins page, okay, and so the plugins link here on the left, it should bring you this list of different plugins that we have available for AppScan on Cloud. And really the focus for AppScan on Cloud is not just the ability to conduct scans, but also run the scans in some of these other platforms that you may need to leverage, right? So if we scroll down to CI/CD, you can then see the different environments that we have native plugin for. So things like Azure DevOps, Jenkins, Bamboo, so you can actually leverage the built-in plugin to automate the scans and run the scans as part of your pipeline. Scrolling further down, you get to see some other plugins for things like defect tracking systems. If you want to export the issues to Jira, things like that. So there's different ways you can integrate depending on what you're looking to achieve. And other tools, as well as if you want to do your own integration. So we do have a full AppScan on Cloud Swagger documentation that if you can click on, and you get to see what are the different API endpoints that you can leverage for automating AppScan on Cloud. So in fact, AppScan on Cloud as a platform, right, is built on API first. So I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe there are some functionalities in API that maybe the UI is not even as versatile for, or as well built for. So really the API here are it's quite extensive. You can not just run scans or modify scans, conduct modify some of the scan settings, modify templates, but then from a result or management issues, generating reports, it's all can be done within the API here, right? If you want to build your own integration. I want to show an example of an integration using the Jenkins plugin. Okay, so let's just start with Jenkins. It's because it's you can deploy that on-prem. It makes it a little bit easier. But you're free to try out the Azure DevOps one as well. It's you do need to have your own Azure DevOps account for that. But for Jenkins, we have it locally installed in the VM. Okay, so if you click on the Jenkins plugin, it should take you to the marketplace for Jenkins, and it'll kind of talk about how to use the native plugin for this particular platform. Same thing for the other ones. If you click on these boxes, like for example Azure, it should take you to the kind of the overview page or the marketplace page for the particular plugin. and kind of explain how to use those. But I'll walk us through kind of the Jenkins workflow, and we'll see what we can expect to achieve, right, with Jenkins. So let's open up a new tab, okay, in Google Chrome. And on the bookmark, you should see this dashboard bracket Jenkins. So let's click on that. And that should take you to the locally installed Jenkins instance, okay, with a login screen. Okay, again, that's open up a new tab, and then the shortcut is on the bookmark here. And then if you click on that, it should take you to this screen. So the username and password is actually stored on a little text file on the desktop. So let's just minimize everything. Go to the desktop of the VM, okay? You should see this credential and info box, this text box, text file. And underneath the Jenkins section, you should see username is admin, password is watchfire, okay? So again, let's just, we'll follow this and just paste it into the, the login fields, okay? So admin, watchfire, okay? Sign in, okay? So that should take us all into the Jenkins dashboard. Okay, and you get to see when we're logged in here, there are a couple, pipelines or different components already listed here, which we'll try out here. But just to, if you're able to see this list of pipelines or these lists of applications, then you're good to go, right? You're in Jenkins. So one thing we should take a look at is if you click on, I think it's under Manage Jenkins. Okay, so if you go to, I think it's at the bottom here, go to Plugin Manager. I'm sure there's another place you can use to navigate to the Plugin Manager. Yeah, so once you're in the Plugin Manager, so this is under, yeah, so the way how I got here again is if you click on Manage Jenkins, right? And then you go click on the Plugin Manager at the bottom here. I think it's, if you scroll down, okay, it's at the bottom, I see. Yeah, all the settings. Okay, so click on Manage Plugins, actually. I think this is a better way to get there. And you get to see all the plugins that are installed in this environment here. So if I click on Installed, you can then see, I search for AppScan. Okay, so you can see AppScan as a plugin, right, is already installed. So that's the first step, is to enable, or like if you have a Jenkins environment, you want to enable or install the plugin that is available in the Jenkins marketplace. Okay, so what that allows us to do is if you go to the dashboard again, okay, back to the main view, let's click on ASOC Jenkins example. Okay, so once we're in the ASOC Jenkins example, click on configure. Okay, so that's on the left here, third option from the bottom, configure. Okay, so that takes us to the pipeline configuration page. And if I scroll down to the bottom here, notice how there's a build, and under the build step, I have already a run AppScan on Cloud security test step included inside, the Jenkins, this build step. And you can actually add that, yourself. If you don't have this, like if you're running this in your own environment, you would just click on add a build step, and then you can include the AppScan on Cloud security test. Because we have the plugin installed, this allows us to include this, right? So that's what the plugin enables. It's this native plugin that allows you to run scans using Jenkins. So the first thing we need to do is configure your credential into Jenkins. To do that, okay, we're just gonna exit out of the dash. So let's go back to the dashboard again. So let's not worry about saving anything because it's already there. Click on Manage Jenkins again. Okay, and then scroll down. And where we want to go is manage credentials. Okay, so again, this is under manage Jenkins and then manage credentials. Okay, so under the credentials page, you see there's like two IDs listed here. Let's click on the first one, or actually instead, click on, I think if you click on the name here, okay, yeah, so click on the name here on the right, okay, and that should take you to this particular credential that we have saved. Now, you want to update this credential to yours, so the way this works is that you click on update, okay, and now I want to specify my API key and secret, right? My API ID and secret. So where do you get this is the next question, right? Where do we get this ID and secret? So let's just leave this page here as is. Let's go back to my AppScan on Cloud. Okay, and then click on API. So when you click on the API here, you'll see your API key and secret. And again, this is where you can generate a set of API key and secret that allows you to integrate to different third-party toolings. In this case, it's going to be Jenkins. You can always generate fresh copies of the key ID and secret, and that's going to invalidate the last one that you generated. So the general recommendation is that you generate a set here, and then just keep it in a text file or something or somewhere, and you can always refer back to it. And I mean, if you lose it, you can always come back here and generate a new one. So that's okay. It's just you're gonna have to specify the new API key and secret wherever you've already used it, right, in the different platforms. So click on generate. I'm not gonna generate again. I do have a set already. So basically, just paste the ID here. So I'm gonna try to do that again just to make sure mine is good too. So it should be this one. Okay, and then the secret, click on the change password, okay, and then delete whatever that was there before. And you should be able to see a secret that was generated in your environment in AppScan on Cloud, right? Okay, so again, ID and secret is just in the AppScan on Cloud API page. If you click on generate, there should be an ID and secret that is made available. Okay, so once you have copied both over, click on save. Okay, and now my API key and secret is now stored under the title or the tag AppScan Cloud credential. Okay, so let's use it, right? Let's now connect our AppScan our Jenkins to our own instance of AppScan on Cloud. So let's go back to the dashboard again. Okay, let's go to ASOC Jenkins example. Again, go back to configure. And let's scroll down back to where the step that was, right, for the AppScan on Cloud security test. And when you click on the AppScan on Cloud credential, make sure, like the first credential field is selected to AppScan Cloud credential. And when you click on the application dropdown, you should see all the list of applications that you have the permission to see, right, within AppScan on Cloud. So, like the one that I created with my name here, it's also visible here. So this is important because we're going to be running the scan under this particular application. For the test name, you can just leave it as is, Arturo J. Jenkins. For the test type, make sure you click on dynamic analysis. Okay. And then under the starting URL, let's put in the demo test file mode equals demo. This demo mode basically just makes the scan runs faster. It's a bit of a pre-canned result set that we do. So you're free to just not use it. Like you can keep it like this, just a regular URL. But I would suggest you add the demo tag parameter. It makes the scan run faster. A little bit of a cheat way to run a scan. I'm gonna send the URL into the chat again if you need to grab it. Okay. Now there are some other additional settings here. So if you click on the additional options, you have the option of setting some of the things that you see in AppScan on Cloud, like your scan type, if it's a staging or production, test optimization. Again, you can specify that here. For the login username and password, and again, this refers to if you're using the form-based login, just a typical login sequence, you can specify that here. Otherwise, I would generally recommend, if you have already recorded a login sequence, you may want to specify the scan file within Jenkins here. That way you have everything kind of pre-configured. You don't have to worry about your test optimization, test policy. It's all going to include it in your scan file. But for our demo here, it's just let's use the URL like this, and we're not going to specify any username. It's just for the purpose of seeing how the integration works. And obviously, if you want to do something more in depth, we can use the scan file to provide more targeted or configured scan configuration. So other settings include email notification, and similar to, we've seen this intervention by scan enablement team. If you want to enable that, that's also available. One thing I do want to show is you can actually fail the bill based on certain criteria. So you can actually fail the bill based on non-compliance with your application policy, okay, as an option. Basically, this requires your application to have a policy defined, just like how we did it, right? When we are in my application, we had OWASP top 10, right? So right now it's non-compliant. So in this case here, if I were to run the scan and I have this checkbox enabled, after the scan is completed, if it detects that it is now non-compliant, or if it's already non-compliant, it's going to show a fail build status. Fail build does not mean the scan failed, the scan succeeded, but it's going to fail this particular build or this particular pipeline within Jenkins. Okay, so I think it's a very nifty feature where, if you're doing automated scans or like recurring scans, that you can then fail the bill, and then you can have additional steps that would notify certain set of users when the fail bill condition has been satisfied, right? So that's one way you can fail the bill. You can also fail bill based on other conditions. So here, if you click on this little checkbox, fail bill if, you can fail it based on things like total number of issues found that was greater than a certain quantity. So, like typically I see things like, people generally don't like to see high severity issues. So they would put like anything higher than 0, high severity, they want to fail the bill. Perhaps you want to allow maybe a small number of medium, then you can do like no more than 2 medium. If it's more than 2, then I'm going to fail the bill. Or, you can go by low as well, right? So just depends on how sensitive or how important the application is, and you can adjust the fail bill condition based on that. I'm not going to use any of this because I do want to just run the scan, allow it to just run normally. Okay, and then I can then just click on save. And after I have saved it, it's now stored. The configuration is now stored in Jenkins. Let's click on build now. Okay, and then if you look at the build history,